Tonight, we will journey through 5 powerful stories from the Bible. Stories of faith, courage, and miracles that have comforted believers for thousands of years. As you listen, allow your mind to relax and your heart to be filled with peace. These timeless stories remind us that no matter how difficult life becomes, faith can guide us through every storm. So settle in, get comfortable, close your eyes if you'd like, and let these calming Bible stories bring you peace as you drift into restful sleep. We'll hear about a young shepherd who faced a giant, a sea that parted when there was no way out, a man who walked out of his tomb after 4 days, and more moments when God showed up in impossible situations. Each story is a reminder that you're never alone, that faith can move mountains, that miracles still happen. So take a deep breath, let go of the worries of the day, and let these ancient stories speak peace to your soul. Let's begin. Before we start our journey, if you enjoy these peaceful Bible stories, subscribe to this channel so you never miss one. Now let's walk through these timeless moments together. When faith sees giants differently. Our first story takes us to a valley in ancient Israel, where 2 armies stood facing each other across open ground. On one side, the Philistines. On the other, the Israelites under King Saul. But they weren't fighting. They were simply standing there, watching, waiting, because every morning for 40 days, the same ritual had played out. A giant named Goliath would walk out from the Philistine camp. He stood over 9 feet tall. His armor alone weighed over 100 pounds. The iron tip of his spear weighed 15 pounds. He was a living fortress. And every single morning he would issue the same challenge. Choose a man to fight me. If he kills me, we'll be your servants. But when I kill him, you become our servants. For 40 days, not one soldier moved. King Saul himself, the tallest man in Israel, wouldn't fight him. They were paralyzed by fear. Then one day, a young shepherd boy arrived at the camp. His name was David. He wasn't part of the army. He was just bringing food to his older brothers. He arrived just as Goliath was delivering his daily insult. And David heard it. This pagan mocking the army of God's people. Something stirred inside him. He turned to the men nearby and asked, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" The soldiers thought he was crazy. "That's Goliath. No one can defeat him." But David kept asking questions. Word reached King Saul. He sent for David. "You can't fight him," Saul said gently. "You're just a young man, and he's been a warrior from his youth." David stood firm. "I've been keeping my father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came to steal a lamb, I went after it and killed it. The same God who protected me from the lion and bear will protect me from this Philistine." Saul had no other options. He gave David permission. Saul tried to give David his armor, but it was too heavy. David took it off. Instead, he went to a stream and chose 5 smooth stones. He put them in his bag, took his sling, and walked toward the giant. Goliath saw David with just a stick and laughed. "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" But David didn't waver. "You come against me with sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty. This day, the whole world will know there is a God in Israel." Goliath charged. David ran toward him, took a stone, and slung it with perfect aim. The stone struck Goliath in the forehead. The giant fell face first to the ground. David took Goliath's own sword and cut off his head. The Philistine army watched in shock. They turned and ran. Israel won. As you rest tonight, remember, the giants in your life may look unbeatable, but with faith, you can see them differently. Not as obstacles too big to overcome, but as opportunities for God to show his strength. That shepherd boy faced his giant with courage born from faith. But sometimes the challenge isn't a single enemy. Sometimes, it's a situation where you're completely trapped. Danger behind you, an impassable barrier in front, and no way out. That's when you need the kind of faith that stands still and watches God make a way where there is no way. When God opens paths through the impossible. After 400 years of slavery in Egypt, the Israelites were finally free. God had sent 10 devastating plagues. Pharaoh had finally let them go. So they left, over 2 million people walking toward freedom. But after they left, Pharaoh changed his mind. He mobilized his army, 600 of his best chariots plus thousands more, the most powerful military force in the ancient world, and they chased after the refugees. The Israelites were camped by the Red Sea when someone spotted the dust cloud on the horizon. Then they saw them, chariots, hundreds of them. Panic spread through the camp. "Why did you bring us out here to die?" they screamed at Moses. "It would have been better to stay in Egypt than die in the desert." Look at their situation. They were trapped. Behind them, the Egyptian army. On both sides, impassable mountains. In front of them, the Red Sea. Deep, wide, no boats, no bridge. There was literally nowhere to go. But Moses stood before the terrified crowd and spoke with impossible calm. "Do not be afraid. Stand firm and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Then God spoke to Moses. "Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water." Moses obeyed, and God sent a strong east wind that blew all through the night. The water began to divide, walls of water forming on the right and left, held in place by nothing visible. Between the walls the seabed appeared, but it wasn't mud. It was dry ground, completely dry. "Move forward," Moses commanded. 2 million people walked through. All night they crossed, looking up at walls of water that should have crushed them, but instead stood impossibly still. By morning, the last Israelite reached the other shore. The Egyptians saw the path and charged into the seabed. But God threw them into confusion. Chariot wheels came off. Horses panicked. God told Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea." Moses raised his hand. The walls collapsed. Water rushed back with devastating force. The entire Egyptian army was destroyed. Not one survived. On the far shore, the Israelites worshipped, because God had done the impossible. Rest peacefully tonight, knowing this. When you face your own Red Sea moment, when you're trapped with no way forward, God specializes in making paths that don't exist. Trust Him. So faith can defeat giants. Faith can part seas. But what happens when the impossibility isn't a barrier or an enemy, but death itself? What happens when someone you love has died and every hope seems buried with them? That's when we turn to one of the most powerful stories Jesus ever lived, the raising of Lazarus. When 4 days dead isn't too late. In a village called Bethany lived a man named Lazarus and his 2 sisters, Mary and Martha. They were close friends of Jesus. One day, Lazarus became deathly sick. The sisters sent an urgent message to Jesus. "Lord, the one you love is sick." Everyone expected Jesus to rush to Bethany, but he stayed where he was for 2 more days. When Jesus finally arrived, Lazarus had been in the tomb for 4 days. 4 days. In Jewish tradition, after 3 days, death was final. Hope was gone. Martha came out to meet Jesus. Her first words were filled with pain. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." But then she added desperately, "But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask." Even now, 4 days dead. But even now, maybe. Jesus told her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha thought he meant someday, the far future. But Jesus said, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die." Do you believe this? "Yes, Lord," Martha said. "I believe you are the Messiah." Mary came out next, fell at Jesus' feet, and said the same thing. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Jesus saw her weeping, saw the mourners weeping, and something broke inside him. The text says, Jesus wept. God weeping, present, grieving with his creation. Jesus walked to the tomb, a cave with a stone across the entrance. "Take away the stone," Jesus said. Martha pressed it. "But Lord, by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there 4 days." Jesus looked at her. "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" They rolled away the stone. The smell was overwhelming. Jesus prayed aloud, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe you sent me." Then he called out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." Silence. Then, movement in the darkness. A figure appeared, wrapped in burial cloths, moving, alive. Lazarus, dead for 4 days, walking out of his tomb. People rushed forward, unwrapping the cloths, and there he was, eyes open, breathing, alive. As you rest tonight, let this truth settle into your soul. Nothing is too far gone for God. Not the relationship you think is dead. Not the dream you buried. Jesus stands at the tombs in our lives and calls out, "Come forth." And what was dead? Lives. Jesus raised a man from the dead. But not everyone has direct access to Jesus when crisis hits. Sometimes the obstacle isn't death, it's just a crowd blocking you from the help you need. That's when you need friends with the kind of faith that refuses to take no for an answer. When faith gets creative, Jesus was teaching in a house in Capernaum. The place was packed. Wall-to-wall people, Pharisees and teachers from every village had come to hear him. Outside, 4 men arrived carrying their paralyzed friend on a mat. They had heard Jesus could heal, but when they reached the house, they couldn't get in. The crowd was too thick. Most people would give up. "We tried. Maybe next time." But these 4 men looked at each other. Then they looked up, the roof. They carried their friend up the outside stairs to the roof, and they started digging. Inside, Jesus was teaching when dirt started falling from the ceiling. People looked up. A hole was forming, getting bigger. Then a mat was lowered through the hole. On it, a paralyzed man. Mark's gospel says, when Jesus saw their faith, not the paralyzed man's faith, their faith, the 4 friends who refused to let a crowd stop them, Jesus looked at the man and said, "Son, your sins are forgiven." The Pharisees were offended. Only God can forgive sins. Jesus knew their thoughts. Which is easier, to say your sins are forgiven or get up and walk? But I want you to know that the Son of Man has authority to forgive sins. He looked at the paralyzed man. "I tell you, get up, take your mat, and go home." The man stood up, picked up his mat, walked out through the astonished crowd. Everyone was amazed. As you settle into rest tonight, remember, sometimes the miracle is waiting on the other side of creative persistence. When every door seems closed, faith looks for another way. Those 4 friends had faith for someone else. But what about when you're alone? When there's no one to carry you? When you've tried everything and nothing has worked? That's when we turn to a woman who had suffered for 12 years. When a touch changes everything. She had been bleeding for 12 years, constantly, a condition that made her ceremonially unclean. For 12 years, she'd been isolated, cut off from community, alone. She had spent everything on doctors. Mark's gospel says she suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors. She was worse now than when she started. Then she heard about Jesus. And something inside her, some spark that 12 years of suffering hadn't extinguished, flickered back to life. But she was unclean. She wasn't supposed to be in crowds, so she made a desperate plan. If I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. She pushed into the crowd surrounding Jesus. bodies pressing from every side. She reached out, touched the edge of his cloak. Immediately she felt it. The bleeding stopped. 12 years, over in an instant. She tried to slip away, but Jesus stopped. "Who touched my clothes?" The disciples thought he was joking. People are crowding you and you ask who touched you. But Jesus knew. Someone had touched him with faith. The woman realized she couldn't hide. Trembling, she came forward, fell at his feet, and told him everything. Jesus looked at her with compassion. "Daughter," he said, the only time in the Gospels he uses this word for a woman, "your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." Sleep tonight knowing this. When you're at the end of your rope, when you've tried everything, when all you can do is reach out one more time, that's enough. Faith, the size of a touch, can change everything. 5 stories. 5 impossible moments. 5 times God showed up. A giant fell. A sea parted. A dead man walked. A roof was torn open. A woman was healed. Same God, same power. Different situations. Same result. When faith showed up, the impossible became possible. As you drift off to sleep tonight, let these stories settle into your soul. Let them remind you that the God who parted seas still makes ways where there are none. The God who raised Lazarus can resurrect anything dead in your life. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. And nothing you're facing is too big for God. Sleep peacefully, beloved. The same God who walked with David, Moses, Mary, and all who came to Jesus walks with you. Good night. Rest well and wake tomorrow with faith renewed. Which story spoke to you tonight? Let me know in the comments. And if you need a miracle, type "I believe." Let's build faith together.